Bom dia! I almost never take the bus, but I decided to take the bus up the hill today. I just got off the bus. This place is called Lapa. It's like a bus terminal. Here you can get a bus to all different parts of the city. I'm not very familiar with it because I rarely use the bus, but I think when I go upstairs I'll be in the Lapa neighborhood, and then from there I can walk to my destination, the old historical center, the Pelourinho. I really need to start using the bus more often. You have to go up a lot of different escalators and a lot of different levels to get out of Lapa. And yet another one. And now we're out into the streets, a very busy shopping, working class shopping area here in Lapa. Walking in this part of town, you really see that Salvador is a black city. When I make video in my neighborhood, you might think that Salvador has a largely white population, but here in Brazil, some, well, especially white Brazilians, will claim that what we think of as racism is in reality classism, that it's an issue and a problem of class, not race. But I call BS on that argument. You can't separate race and class. There's a reason why the bulk of the Afro population is poorer, and that there is an informal type of segregation here. Brazil is neither the racial paradise that some people claim it is, but it is also not nearly as racist as the United States is. There's far more racial harmony here, which is why many people who come here for the first time, including myself, when I first came here, feel that it is a racial paradise, that everybody gets along, people mix very well, there's no overt racism or segregation, and that's true. It is far more harmonious here. But with time, you do start noticing racial disparities. It's more subtle than it is in the United States, but it's definitely there. Economically, above all. But I far prefer living here than in the United States. What you don't have here is that racial tension that one feels in the United States. That always present sensation of racial tension in public places. And that's one of the things that I love about Brazil. And now we're arriving in the old colonial center, the Pelourinho, where Salvador was first founded way back in the year 1549. This, of course, is the bay, a Bahia de Todos os Santos, the Bay of All Saints. That round structure there is a fort, an old fort. And this is the part of the city where Salvador really shines. Down there is the Cidade Baixa, the lower city. That structure that is jutting out is an elevator that you take between the lower city and up here, which is the upper city, a Cidade Alta, to the Pelourinho. And in the old days and right up to the present. You can travel between the upper city and the lower city via that elevator. And there's also two funicular, little funicular trains that travel between the lower city and the upper city. It's one of the reasons, along with the fact that Salvador is built on many different levels, it's a very hilly city, that there are similarities between Salvador and my city of origin, San Francisco. Maybe that's one of the reasons I feel at home here. And then another form of public transportation here are ferry boats. Ferry boats that cross the bay, take you from Salvador to the other side, the Pelourinho Island. Very similar to the San Francisco Bay, where there are ferries across the bay that travel between San Francisco and the city of Oakland. Another similarity between San Francisco Bay Area and Salvador de Bahia. This street that we're walking along is called the Rua Chile Street. It is the oldest street in Salvador, and I believe the oldest street in all of Brazil, dating back to the 1500s. This building, this yellow building in front of us, is called the Remove Your Hat Palace, Palacete Tira Chapéu, because back in the day, of course, gentlemen removed their hats when they passed this building. It was the custom back in the 19th, early 20th century. It's a beautiful old building. I remember when it was a kind of a derelict building, but they've really done a marvelous job of renovating it. In front of us is the elevator that travels between the upper city and the lower city. It's being renovated right now, which is why it's got that construction material in front of it, but it's a very interesting and fast way to get between the upper and lower cities. It's a map of the region. Here, of course, is the city of Salvador, a small portion of the city of Salvador, where we are right now, these three black circles, and this is where you cross right here the bay, cross the bay to the Pelourinho Island. Down here would be the open ocean, the entrance to the big bay, the huge Bay of All Saints, very large, much larger than San Francisco Bay. I have to come back to this shop next month after I get paid. It's one of my favorite shops in Salvador. It sells African influenced Brazilian clothing, objects, materials, and books. I love what they have in this shop. It's called Catuca. I have several shirts from the store, and I've acquired several books. Definitely coming back here next month. One thing I've been asking myself recently is if Salvador really is my final destination where I will spend the rest of my life. Not that I would complain if it is. It's just that it wasn't my original plan. When I left the United States, my plan was to be more of a nomad, perhaps with Salvador as my base, my permanent base, but to do a lot more traveling and living in other countries around the world. But my health situation now makes me wonder if that's possible, especially since I was diagnosed with diabetes about 6 months ago. And the reason for that is most of all because of accessibility to medications, particularly Ozempic. Besides being expensive, and sometimes, at least for now, until they fix the supply side, difficult to find, expensive, and the other issue in a practical sense is that, God, look at these churches, absolutely exquisite. It's like walking in medieval Portugal. The other issue, practical issue for traveling, especially if you're not a luxury traveler, and I certainly am not, is that Ozempic, which is a once-a-week injection, has to be kept refrigerated. And if I'm traveling on a ferry boat down the Amazon or on a bumpy old chicken bus in Guatemala or a rickety old train trip of 3, 4, 5 days in India, how do I keep my Ozempic refrigerated, chilled? Fairly easy to figure out. If you're flying somewhere, you can ask the flight attendant to put it in a cool place, in a refrigerated spot, but in the kitchen, the galley, but not so easy on a third-class bus in the middle of nowhere. So it is an issue and makes me wonder how well I'm going to do the type of traveling that I love. And again, I am not saddened or upset by the idea of Salvador being my permanent spot. I love Salvador, I love Bahia, but it definitely does mess with my plans, interrupts my plans for global, worldwide traveler, a wanderer, a nomad, being a nomad. Perhaps that is one of the costs of getting older. I'm turning 70 next month, as I often remind you and myself. Hard to believe. I feel great in spite of my health issues, my heart condition, my diabetes. On a just a practical day-to-day physical level, I feel as good, as mobile, as energetic as I did when I was 40. So it's not my physical condition that would interfere with my travel. It's that having access to Ozempic, which I take from my diabetes, not by the way, and the ability to keep it refrigerated. Maybe that's just a natural part of the ages and stages of life. Perhaps I can't be a nomad forever. I certainly have had a lot of life experience traveling on 6 different continents, many different countries. Oh, look at the dog. And perhaps now this is where I must and will settle. We'll see. We'll see. Suppose another option to just being settled in one place is to move from, say, city to city. A few years in Salvador, a few years in a European capital, a few years in a Southeast Asian country, and have a stable home or apartment or room, a kitchenette perhaps, in those places where I do have a place to store my medication, keep it refrigerated in a place where it's easily available, and affordable. That's one of the advantages of being here in Brazil. It's far, far, far more affordable than it is in the United States, which is, of course, always an outlier. The United States government doesn't really care about Americans, apparently, because they allow drug prices to be so high. Now, the Democrats have been working on that, but not nearly to the extent they should be. And any Americans who have the mistaken idea that they live in the best country in the world need to get an adjustment by traveling outside the United States and living in another country, because the United States in so many ways now is not the best country in the world. And look here at my absolutely gorgeous, exquisite, beautiful city of Salvador. Here we are in the Pelourinho, in the heart of 16th, 17th, 18th century colonial Brazil. Just exquisite. Never get tired of this plaza right here. And you hear those church bells ringing. And here I am, walking here as if I were a tourist, filming with my cell phone, and I don't care. Although I've lived and visited and traveled here for the last 22 years, I'm never going to be mistaken for a native. So I've just learned to just embrace the fact that I'm viewed as a tourist. One more look. Just exquisite. People getting a spiritual cleansing from Pai de Santo, the Candomblé religion. It's such a temptation to buy things and to spend money and to go into this cafe, the Cantinha da Lua, listen to the live music, have a cocktail, but no, I'm going to be disciplined and not spend any money. It's a feast for the eyes, and that is the kind of feast I'm having today and for the rest of the month. The colorful fitas de bonfim, the colorful ribbons that are tied in various spots in the city to fence posts, to churches, to bring good luck, to make a wish, to baianas. And drums, there are always drums. And here's another look at the lower city, viewed from the upper city. There's the Lacerda elevator, and of course looks out across the Bay of All Saints. The lower city looks a lot more weathered. It was once Salvador's centro, downtown, but it's been eclipsed by other parts of the city. You can see the buildings are from the 40s, 50s, early 60s. There are some older colonial buildings down there too. There's one. I love the lower city because it's so weathered and battered, and it's got a lot of character. It's very different from up here, the Pelourinho, the upper city, but it's certainly worth a visit to get a taste of Salvador, urban Salvador, the real Salvador, the non-touristy Salvador. And of course it is also down here in the lower city where you can catch a ferry to Itaparica Island there on the other side. Very worthwhile. Go in here and enjoy an acai, frozen acai, because I'm hot and because I'm walking a lot, and I'm going to be walking back home. It's about an hour and a half walk. So I think I've earned myself a yummy acai. I love me some acai. That was 15 reais, or the equivalent to $3. Not bad. I'm gonna sign off now. I've been walking a lot. It's hot out there, and I've got a long walk ahead of me back home. I'm gonna walk. It's gonna take about an hour and a half, but going home, it's downhill. I took the bus up the hill, and now I'm gonna walk downhill. So thanks for joining me today. Beijos. Ciao.